Hello, welcome to Book Talk. This is your host, Anthony Moirore, and as always, at Book Talk, we get to have a guest come and speak about his book or her book. And today is no exception. We have one good guest with us. His name is Faust Ruggiero. And Faust Ruggiero, in brief, is a therapist who has been in private practice for over 30 years. He's a clinical trainer and is one of the most sought after self-empowerment authors. His book, Fix Yourself, is one that we are going to talk about in this show today. And this book offers an interesting range of approaches to becoming more objective and less emotional about life experiences in order to stay centered and peaceful. Without taking any more time, let me welcome to you, Faust Ruggiero. Welcome to the show.
Anthony, thanks so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Yeah, it's good to have you here, and thank you for your time. And let's first get to know about you, a bit more about you. Tell us.
Well, currently I'm a therapist and author, but it goes way back to the early days of my life. I was that kid that everybody came to and wanted to talk to if they had something on their mind. My listening skills were always good for whatever reason. I love people. I love to hear different people talk. So it just kept on going from that point. I come from a family of four kids. So I'm the second oldest, and so I was kind of like my father got sick. I was the kid who was trying to take care of everybody, and that was just went into through high school and college. Psychology was just very interesting to me. So I did that, went to graduate school, came out, I worked in a lot of different clinics and settings like that, even a prison, and finally went into private practice. So that was way back in the late 80s, and I'm still there now.
Oh, wonderful. And you talk about you being the second born and taking care of your father. How does that come to be?
When I was 9 years old, my father had a stroke.
Yeah.
So it really changed his life. He couldn't get around as much. And so, I was always that caretaker mentality. So, I was always trying to fix this and, you know, address that. And my mother worked, and came home and was real good with all of us. But there was just a little bit more needed that a father used to, was providing that he couldn't provide anymore. So, talk about honing your skills at a very young age. It started then.
Okay. And how did it not come to be the firstborn who was mostly there? I mean, usually I hear that there's firstborns who are taking all the load of the family, and sometimes the
Well,
lastborns. And you
it,
being there in the middle.
it was kind of a shared role. He was still there, and he was at home. He still worked a bit, but it was just it left him with some physical disabilities, and his speech was a little slurred, but he got by. But there was just a lot of things that naturally kind of flowed into my direction. And being the second oldest, my sister was 5 years older than I, getting ready to graduate high school in a few years, so she was ready to leave. So it was just, it was there. He was a good man. My parents were great to all of us, but it just put me in a position where I took on a little bit more.
Ah, okay. Now we understand. And you mentioned of a stroke that your father went through. I mean, and this life is full of challenges. I mean, if it's not a sickness, it's some lack of something, some lack of finances. I mean, we are all going through a lot of things, and we get to experiences in different levels, in different ways. How did that impact you? I mean, finding yourself at that situation.
Well, when you're in that, you don't think much about it because you're just doing it every day. But when I look back at it, it put me in a position to understand, or to begin to understand that lots of things are going to happen in life. We can't predict what's going to happen. And if we're willing to go into that and say, okay, fine, I can do this. It might be challenging, but I can do it. I can really put myself into this and draw on my strengths, they're there. We just have to be willing to do that. You know, we spend a lot of time getting afraid or angry or whatever it may be. So our energy goes in a different direction. If we just channel it and focus on what we need to do, usually everything we have, you know, everything we need, we have already. We just need to go get it. That's all.
Oh yeah, you say that no one can fix the world for you. You are the one to fix it. And this is
And
how,
that's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
You know, and that's why, you know, people always say, well, what's the most important thing about your book? And, you know, I wrote this, the Fix Yourself Handbook, um, 2 years ago, because I wanted people to understand what I was teaching in my counseling program, which is that, you know, it's not that you don't have the strength, you don't have the ability, it's all there. But we tend to look to the outside world to come and fix us. We want to go quick fix, and we don't want to have to apply too much effort. So, you know, when something happens, we don't always have the confidence
Mhm.
that we need to address it. Everything we have is already in there. We just have to learn how to go get it and use it. That's all. That's really all it is. A very simple program that I teach.
Oh, it's good. And today we are going to find out about how to bring out those qualities that are inside of us to make a great change in our own lives so we live a better life. I believe you've experienced, or rather, you've had a lot of stories in your practice, and that's how you came up with the ideas and the processes that are helpful, that have results in the people that you are attending to.
Right. You know, when you go to college, they teach you all different kinds of things that you should do to help people, and then you sit in the office and listen to people and say, uh, that doesn't always work, and I need to figure something else out. So that's where I started to tinker with things and realize that there are processes that if we learn how to use those, life changes. Gets much better. We become more proficient about learning, and, you know, more productive and just happier people.
Oh, yeah, sure. Whatever we go to college to, we don't always come to meet the same thing out there. When you get to experience something that you had not experienced as you are going through school, it becomes a different picture altogether. And talking about fix yourself, we talk of challenges and things like that. By fixing, we kind of get to that when you're fixing something, it must be broken. So, yeah, tell
Yeah,
us.
what it really is it's not working for us. I mean, you know, that's what I'll say to people when they come into counseling, what's not right, and they'll tell me the things that they're doing in their lives, and I always say, well, it's, you know, you're close, but what you're doing is not working, and you keep trying to do the same thing over and over again. Why don't
Mhm.
we look at some different ways to fix those things? And again, once they learn the program, they realize that they can do this anytime they want to. It's not as difficult as people think it is. It's just something that, you know, it's the old story. If difficulty arises, you can run away from it, or you can face it head on and deal with it. And when you run away from it, all that happens is things get worse. So I just teach people how to run into the problem, how to go straight forward and deal with it. And it's really not that difficult.
Wow, that's interesting. Run into the program. I mean,
It's
all
the
of
only,
us, yeah,
the best way through a problem is straight through. And
yeah,
what we do is run around, or we try to go around it. We get away from it. We say, well, I'll deal with it another time. We have all these strategies that keep us from dealing with it because dealing with it's uncomfortable.
yeah.
And, you know, but what I always tell people is that's where you grow. When something's uncomfortable and you face it, you realize, well, gee, I went through that and I actually did that. And you start learning about yourself and how strong you really are. But you can't learn that while you're running away.
Oh, yeah, sure. You've got to experience it and come out shining.
Right.
I want to imagine of this illustration of someone talking about a seed being planted in the ground, and then you have two options when you're planted in the ground, either to rot away or get some roots in the ground and keep on growing.
And that's what life is all about. But people look at that and they say, well, okay, I'll try to do this. And I say, once you learn it, it becomes something that feels so good for you that you look forward to the next challenge, because you say, well, I was really afraid of that other one, but I stuck with it, and I came through it, and I really learned a lot about myself. And I said, wow, I'm more powerful than I thought I was. So when the next one comes up, I already know I have more resources. I already know that because I use them.
Now, do you have an example of a challenge or a problem that you found yourself in, and you came out and looked back and said, "Oh, wow."
Oh, there are so many. I remember coming out of graduate school and looking for jobs, and had a few job offers, but they were just not satisfying, lower paying, required a lot of hours, things, I was just trying so hard just to make financial ends meet. And, it started getting angry, a little bit afraid of things. And maybe I'm not going to be able to do this. And then realized that what I needed to do was to have a plan. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what do I want to go? I knew down the road I wanted to go into private practice, but you had to get licensed, and you had to have so many hours of counseling. So I said, okay, let's not try to rush this. Let's go one step at a time and go into smaller clinics, and a hospital, a prison, and various settings like that. I started to do some work in businesses to help them do get better. And before you know it, I had built up such a following that when I went into private practice, it was all there for me. But I slowed it down. I got my intellect over my emotion, as I always teach. Don't get so emotional and react and say I'm never going to get there. Of course you are. Why would you not? All you have to do is have a plan and be patient and execute your plan, and things will work out.
Oh, wow. And when we talk about your practice, you've been there for 4 decades. And the way I can see is that you were only under some people, or if I can imagine that, for a quarter of the time that you've been working. You've been uh, now, the most of the time you've been in private. Now, that's interesting. And the people that are coming out of college, whatever field they are in right now, they are looking to find a job and be permanently there. Look for how long they are going to work and then retire. and then and they may not be very lucky, so they could end up giving up. What's the solution for them?
What I tell people is, again, have a plan, and understand that you're not going to get what you want right away. That's the
Yeah.
key to this. What
Uh-huh.
I'm seeing with a lot of the younger people today, they're coming out of college, or they're people in their late 20s and early 30s, and they want it all right away.
Mhm.
Uh, and what they're doing is they're going into debt to get it right away.
Yeah.
And they're coming out of school with many of them with huge college loans to begin with, and they're trying to get established right away. And I always tell people, they look and they say, "Well, look, you did this," and I said, "Yeah, but I went very slow. If I showed you all the various places I worked in before I
Mhm.
went into private practice,
Yeah.
that'd be a different story." So, if you have faith in yourself, you don't have to rush. You
Mhm.
know that you're going to put your plan together,
Mhm.
and you'll get to where you need to go. And for me, working in all those other places, deaf clinics, drug and alcohol facilities, hospitals, prisons, all those kinds of things, I had so much information, so much experience to draw on, that when I went into private practice,
Yeah.
now people come in. I had what they say, well, the marriage is a problem, and I have some depression, and I was drinking too much. Well, I had all those areas that I knew about now, because I worked in those facilities. If I
Mhm.
just jumped into it and tried to be the big shot right away, I wouldn't have that information.
Yeah, it's good. So you would advise them to have the experience past, not necessarily the dream jobs that they have in their own minds. Get the
Yeah,
experience, get the knowledge, get to interact, network, get to learn a few more things before they go to their dream profession or things like that.
exactly. If you think about it, if you're the person trying to hire someone, you're not going to hire someone fresh out of school who has no experience. You're going to look for some experience,
Yeah,
because you want your project or your team to have that. You're
yeah,
not going to say, well, you haven't been anywhere. Let me bring you right in and pay you top dollar. And who does that? Uh, So, we look for the experienced people who have an idea of what they're doing.
Mm. Oh, wonderful. Back to the book. When did you write the book?
I started writing the book in 2016. I researched it. So I knew what the design was going to be, that, and people would be able to embrace it. I finished it at the end of 2019. So it
Okay.
was published in December of 2019. It's out about a year and a half now.
Oh, and that means is all the information that you had gathered all those 3 decades that you've put into this book that could go and help someone out there who's listening to this broadcast right now.
Right.
So we believe that it has quite a lot of, encouragement, some lessons, some. Uh, Please go ahead and tell us what we are going to expect when we are going to start
When I
that book.
Anthony, when I wrote the book, I wanted it to be some kind of simulate a counseling experience. I wanted people to know what it was like when they went into counseling. I
Mhm.
also wanted them to get to learn what all those processes I talk about are all about.
Yeah.
So when I wrote it, I put all the processes together, and
Mhm.
then I wrote it kind of as a journey. So I wanted to let people know that they can come into life or into reading this book and using the program, feeling very maybe not so good about themselves,
Yeah.
confused, conflict in their minds, anxiety, depression, whatever. And then if they slowly work the program,
Mhm.
they'd be able to deal with most of those things. So the way I did it was I set it up in very small chapters. They're
Okay.
3 to 5 pages long.
Yeah.
I present a problem, for example, that might be anger. How do you deal with your anger? And then I give them all the information about how anger develops and works in their minds.
Mhm.
But then I did something in self-help book that I haven't seen before. At the end of every chapter, I put all the steps necessary to change it. So I said, if you're dealing with anger, you want to change it, do these 6 or 7 or 8 things. If you
Okay.
do those repeatedly, you're going to change that and you're not going to be as angry.
Okay.
And I bring them through right from the beginning when they start the program to the very end, where they learn how to like their life and love themselves and do all those kinds of things that we're all looking for.
Yeah.
But I wanted to set it up as a journey, and I wrote it so that both men and women can embrace it, because self-help books tend to be written, as we know, for women. So I wanted the men to come aboard and say, okay, fine, I can do this.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I did is I wanted it to be a reference book. So after you read it, if you say maybe a year from now, I'm getting angry again, how did I change that? They can go right back to the chapter on anger, read 4 or 5 pages, and see those steps all over again.
I think we men believe that we've got it all, so we can
Oh,
handle
yes, we
anything.
do. Yeah. And we don't.
So
We just do different things to mess it up. Just women get emotional, and maybe they get caught in trying to help everyone else and fix things. And we, on the other hand, we think we're going to handle everything. So we don't show anybody that we're afraid. We get angry and we show power, but it's a cover up.
yeah,
You
I've
know,
come to and I've come to discover there are so many men who are suffering in silence. They don't want to speak, and
absolutely.
they go into a depression. They can't function well at work or at school when if they are younger ones, and we just have to accept that we've not got it all figured it out, and we have to find a
You
way
know,
out.
and when we do that,
Mm-hmm.
it really is a relief, because then we're saying, you know what, I don't have to put on that act anymore.
Yeah.
If I can't do something, I just say to my wife or a girlfriend or my family or whoever, you know what, I don't know what that is. I'll have to figure it out with you, and that's a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but all this anger and all this strong stuff, and what it does, you're right, we keep everything inside, but
Yeah.
eventually that just makes us get sick, and that's, I think, in my mind, that's one of the reasons why men tend to die earlier than women, because we're keeping so much in.
Mm-hmm.
We're literally doing some damage to our bodies. It's
Yeah.
much more peaceful and relaxing to just get it out and talk about it and work on a solution together.
Yeah, and it's good. I believe your book handles the issue of stress and how to deal with stress.
Yeah, absolutely. If people do what I'm asking them to do, the
Yeah.
stress level goes way down, because for everything that comes up, there's a solution. There's a new way to deal with it. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the the formula, so to speak, I teach is to present your problem, then get all the information about it,
Yeah.
then have a plan together and go fix it. I call it just present, understand, fix. It's very simple. It's very easy to remember. If something comes up in your life, present what the problem is. Okay, the problem is we're not communicating in our marriage. Okay, now let's go back and see what all the information is about. Let's put that information down. And maybe we're not good communicators. Maybe something happened that someone's angry about, or something like that. Let's put that there. Now let's see how we're going to fix it, and then let's go do it. It's really not a complicated procedure at all.
Wow, and I like that. It's present, understand, and fix. Because we cannot fix something that has not been presented. And again, we cannot fix something that we do not understand.
Correct. And the example I always use is if you bring your car to the repair shop
Yeah.
and it has a problem and you just bring it in and say, well, I don't know, I heard a noise, and you leave it. The mechanic doesn't know what the noise is, doesn't know anything about your problem.
Yeah.
So now he's going to do something, and he tries to fix it. And you bring the car home and you say, it's still doing the same thing. Well, of course it is, because you didn't give the repairman the information. You just said there's a noise.
Okay.
So he would, if you would have sat and talked with him and said, okay, this is where it's coming from, and maybe it happens when I put the brakes on, or when I turn the steering wheel, or whatever it may be. Now he knows where to go. Now the two of you can talk a little bit, then he knows where to go to fix the problem. Then he comes back and you say, okay, he says, okay, did that do it? Drive it, tell me what you think. Completely different way than just dropping the car off and saying, here, fix it, and walking away.
Yeah, and sometimes it's also the repairman that didn't take his time to understand the problem before.
That's the other part, yes.
Yeah, so it becomes a whole complicated issue. So present, understand, and fix. You briefly mentioned the issue to do with, one of the topics or one of the areas that you've talked about is anger. Which other areas have you pointed out that we are going to be presented with? Try to understand it and look for some solutions along the way.
It's a good question. Taking the chapter on anger, and again, I should go back and say that I do a chapter on present, understand, fix. So that's because that's what guides every chapter of the book. We're going to use that formula in every chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get to anger, what I tell people is, and there are different kinds of anger.
Mm-hmm.
Men use rapid anger. We get angry real fast and we throw something or whatever. Women tends to use kind of a passive anger, where they don't say anything, but then maybe they don't do something for you, or they say something behind your back, or we give each other the silent treatment. There's all different kinds of anger.
Yeah.
So I say, sit down. We know there's anger in the picture. Talk about what kind of anger there is, and I give all the kinds in the book. Mm-hmm. And talk about where the anger is coming from and how you display that anger. Once you do that, then you can say, all right, we know what kind of anger it is. Mm-hmm. We know where it's coming from. Yeah. Let's see what we can do to fix it. Then we put our plan together. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was because someone was drinking too much, or someone, was flirting with someone else in the marriage. Yeah. And then it's okay, fine. These are the things that we want to do. These are the things we don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And once we do those things and we actually sit down and talk about it, we find that we stop doing the things that make us angry, and we then start fixing the problem. Mm-hmm. And again, everything I'm writing is not. It's not this new age formula.
Okay.
It's everything that's been there forever.
Yeah.
We have it. All we have to do is start using this stuff. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. I just wrote about what we all have.
And sometimes we always require some reminders because we tend to forget.
Well, Anthony, what happened is we grew to be people that learned to get everything we want from outside of ourselves. When you go back to the beginning of the pandemic, you can see that. Mm-hmm. Everything was outside. We do everything from outside. Then the pandemic came and we were shut down. Now we were inside.
Yeah.
And people began to panic. and their emotions took over. And then what we saw was all this irrational behavior. You
Yeah.
know, someone went on in the media and said, you know, you're not going to have enough supplies. What your paper supplies? We couldn't find toilet paper of all things, you know,
Yeah.
because we were irrational, and we got everything from outside. And what I said, if what I did when I heard, okay, pandemic, that we might be quarantined, I stopped and said, okay, slow down. Let me just get my emotions out. Let me get the information. I already knew that it's the problem is pandemic, isolation, you know, it's communicable. I knew what the problems were. So my next thing was get all the information from the right sources, CDC, the World Health Organization, whatever, the right people.
Yeah.
Once I had that information, I made some decisions. I said, okay, it's not going to be horrible.
Mhm.
If I would be quarantined and they said you can't go out, my friends, my relatives, family, they would bring food and supplies to my door. I would leave the money for them, and I would be okay.
Mhm.
I have food, I have shelter, I have everything I need, but I wasn't getting emotional about it. I just said,
Yeah.
what do we need to do here? And
Mhm.
every time something new came out, some new piece of information, I said, let me think about it. I didn't go on social media and hate the president and hate the people that were spreading this and say all the negative things. I kept my talk positive, which
Yeah.
is also something I tell people. The way you talk to yourself is the way you will behave. So if you're talking negative all the time, you'll
Yeah.
think that way and you'll behave that way.
Exactly.
Talk positive. Think, what's my solution to this problem? And it works. It's just all about using the formula. You know, get the information,
Mhm.
get your emotions down. We get emotional very fast.
Yeah, sure. So when we get into a problem or a challenge, the easiest thing that someone has is react. You react to the situation with the emotions. You just, whatever comes into mind, you, like someone shouts to you, you get shout to back. You shout to him or her back immediately. That's how we are kind of every one of us. I mean, something I get hurt and I start, I don't know, cussing and doing all the negative things, and that should not be the case.
It shouldn't, you know. And in the book, the first 4 chapters I talk about are how you get the program started. And the first thing I say to everyone is first slow down.
Yeah.
If something happens, like you said, we all react. Instead of saying that, tell yourself, I'm not going to react here.
Mhm.
Let me get the information. Say that to yourself if you have to, but slow down. The
Yeah.
next thing is I do a chapter called I over E, which is intellect over emotion. I just tell people, I teach them, okay, as you slow down, here's how you engage your brain before your emotions. It doesn't mean that we're not going to be able to express our emotions about something. It
Uh-huh.
just says, get your brain in first, then express your emotions later on some in more healthy ways. And then, you know, then I talk about fact finding. Get the facts first. So what you're reacting to is real, because that first piece of information you get is often not the whole story. Most of the time, it's not the whole story.
Yeah.
So take some time, give yourself, you know, I always say, love yourself enough to give yourself the right information so you don't make a fool of yourself or you don't complicate your life.
Oh yeah, sure. And I guess then we need to be very fast thinkers. We need to practice. We need to get some practice into thinking quick, because some of the things happen really quick. And
Very quickly, you know, I did an exercise in a workshop
mhm.
a while back, and where I had people sit down and I presented them with some things I wanted them to do.
Yeah.
Then I said, okay, now you got that information. Just put that aside for a minute. Now I'm going to ask you all to walk real fast around the room. And
Mhm.
I'm going to give you another set of instructions. And I need you to remember those and do them. Then
Yeah.
after it was over, I said, okay, what did I say in the first exercise? And they all were able to tell me what I said. When
Mhm.
they were going fast around the room, they lost all the information. And they were still thinking, they were still listening to me, but they were going so fast that
Yeah.
they forgot things. And that's what I'm telling people. To get information, you have to slow down enough so your ears can hear it, your brain can process it, and you can make some decisions about what to do.
Ah, so thank you very much for that. I mean, next time I'm gonna be slowing down on things.
It's a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah, and life is a learning process. I don't think you've got it all, even you. I mean, I
No, I
haven't
hope not.
myself. I haven't myself. So I'm always
No.
learning.
What I'm telling people is that, because I get that all the time. Well, my gosh, you should be full of wisdom. And I say, well, wisdom is about continuous learning.
Mm,
And you have to be humble enough to say, I don't know everything.
yeah.
And I could be wrong. I mean, you and I could be having a conversation and I could be the expert in the field. And then you may bring something up. And if I'm humble and I really want to keep learning, I might say, gee, I never thought about that,
Mm-hmm.
and I may have learned something from you, even though you weren't the expert. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. The brain wants to keep on learning. So, we keep on feeding it with new information.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
if we get to the point that we think we know everything, that's a kind of an arrogant place to be. And when we're arrogant, we have a tendency to stop learning. So I just say, stay humble, and keep processing new information. It's also just a very great way to live because it makes life feel fresh and new as you're doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. It keeps the mind healthy as you continue to feed it with new information. Even
Absolutely.
yeah. So never stop learning, always keep reading. Hey, you, the listener, go get this book, the Fix Yourself Handbook by Faust Ruggiero. Yeah, so thank you very much. We appreciate it. And I was asking, and maybe we didn't touch that well. I was asking on, you mentioned one area, which other areas that people could be fixing themselves, not only in anger area. I mean, which other areas, if they are in point form, uh, how have you grouped them? The
Well, there's
challenges,
so many different
problems.
topics I cover.
Yeah,
A good one is to talk about envy.
yeah.
We tend to see what other people have,
Mm,
and we want that.
mhm.
Now we look at our lives and we say, well, mine is not so exciting and it's dull and I don't have everything. And look at that person and they have everything.
Yeah.
Or that person is so creative and I'm not creative.
Mhm.
Excuse me. And what I've always said to people is, you stop envying, create the life you want to create. You decide what you want to create. Stop, trying to mimic someone else or have what they have.
Uh-huh.
We're hearing that about that now, the new normal. And I say, well, what is the new normal?
Yeah.
Create your normal.
Mhm.
You decide what you want to do. And that's what I teach people in the book, to create their own lives.
Yeah.
I talk about being passionate about your life,
Mhm.
and working with that, and get up every day. And your first statement of the day will set the tone for
Yeah.
how you're going to live your life. If you get up and say, oh, I got to do all these things today, or I'm just so angry at so and so, or what, that's how you're going to live. But if you
Yeah.
get up and your first statement is, okay, bring it on. I'm going to have fun today. I'm going to do some things that are really good. I'm going to be productive. I'm going to be grateful for what's going on in my world. That's how you'll live your life.
Yeah.
Start
Yeah.
your day that way.
Mhm. Oh yeah, sure. Today I woke up and said, "Oh, today I have an interview with Faust Ruggiero." And yeah, yeah,
I did that when I got up. I said, okay, Anthony and I are going to do an interview. For those, as we talked earlier, we were supposed to do this yesterday. I made the mistake.
yeah.
So we're doing it today. And
Mhm.
I said, well, I'm really looking forward to this. And when I do interviews, I go back. So I've seen a half a dozen of your interviews before, because I wanted to see how things, how you do things. And
Yeah.
I said, okay, I know I'm going to have a good time with Anthony, and I can't wait to get there. So I was all up ready to go. And here we are having a good time. If I would have been the person that said, oh, I get that interview today and I hope that goes okay. And,
Yeah.
I hope I don't make a mistake or something like that. Then that's the frame of mind I would have walked in here. But as
Mhm.
you know, as we were talking before we started recording, I said, let's go have fun. As we have fun,
Yeah.
people will enjoy watching us work. And that's what we're doing.
Yes, and I believe the one who's watching this video right now is enjoying every bit of it.
Yeah, we're having a good time.
Yes.
And that kind of sets the theme for the book. As we are having a good time, that's what I tell people with their lives. Don't make fixing yourself a chore.
Mhm.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
you're going to be making progress every day if you do what I'm telling you to do.
Yeah.
And it's a program for life. So have fun with this. Have fun changing your life. Get up every day and say, I'm ready to go. I'm going to change this, or I'm going to work with that thing. I'm in that chapter of the book and I'm going to work on that. I'm going to change these little things. Get up and enjoy that process. Otherwise, you'll abandon it. Who wants to keep doing something you don't enjoy?
Do you think that could be one of the challenges that the children are going through at school when they understand that this is something that must be done? And so they are kind of have a reflex on it. I don't know. What's your
You
opinion?
know, kids learn from us.
Yeah.
Again, going back to the pandemic, when the adults were getting angry and lashing out at people
Mhm.
and doing all these panic behaviors and being intolerant because they're in the house, that's what the children saw.
Yeah.
So instead of saying to the children, you know what, kids, we're going to get through all of this.
Hmm.
We're going to work together. Let's get up every day and let's work the best we can. Then kids would have said, okay, when challenges come up, we get going. Instead, what a lot of them saw was, I hate this world. I hate my life. I can't leave the house. And they were focusing on all the negatives.
Yeah.
There were so many positives that you could, it brought families back together. It slowed things down. We got a chance to rethink, and reboot there's a lot of good things that came out of it, along with all the negatives. But
Yeah.
the example to kids was, which do you want to focus on? There's that old story, there's the demon in you and the angel. Which one do you want to feed?
Hmm.
And that's what this was all about. It's about how we approach life.
Hmm. And I want to imagine that it's not only the children that affect the way we think and the results that we have in our own life. I mean, even as adults, we were looking at each other, how we are reacting, how we are responding to the situations, and that affects me. What's your opinion on the associations, the people that you get into contact with on a daily basis?
Again, we have even that I have in the book. Uh, the people that you associate with are either those that are going to help you be positive or
Yeah.
help you be negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I always, in my own life, if there are a lot of negative words coming out of someone's mouth, I have a tendency to move away from that.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep hearing. I don't want that to pollute my own life, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. And then you start thinking that way, and that's an old misery life loves company thing. So I tend to stay close to people that are positive, spiritual people that have faith and have family and enjoy life. And many of them have had just horrible challenges in their life, but they still stay focused on trying to be a better person and to go through that as positive as they can. If
Mm-hmm.
you surround yourself with that, it's such a much better way. It's so much easier to live that way.
And that's very good. That's something that we should always try to associate with those people that are going to improve us rather than bring us down. Our friends and relatives, if it's possible, even with our workmates and schoolmates. But the question is to you, Faust, what if it's a family member?
And that's always one of the best questions that I get asked. And I'm glad you asked that one, because it's hard to walk away from family members.
Mm-hmm.
I get that with people who are being abused, or people in very negative, hostile relationships,
Mm-hmm.
in places where people are taking advantage of, and those kinds of things. And what I always tell people, that in those situations, you have three options. You're
Yeah.
going to stay with it and change it. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to stay with it and do nothing, or you're going to lead it. Those are the three options you have.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want that third option.
Mm-hmm.
And the second option, do you stay with it and not do anything? Well,
Mm-hmm.
what do we know with that? It's probably just going to get worse.
Mm-hmm.
So you try to change it.
Mm-hmm.
My advice to people is, if you can't do it on your own, get some help to do that. Uh, get a counselor if you want to help you through that. Family members, whoever, friends, get some positive people in your life to help you rethink it. A new set of eyes on the problem, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
That will help. Because and the pandemic was an example. Now we're locked down with people either we can be positive with, or who we didn't like to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a real problem. Get some help. Get some people that are positive in your life, or get a professional counselor if you can, and let them help you sort it out.
Wow. And now, since you're here with all the experience that you have and you've been through it all, you know it, you have helped some other people before. I know there's someone who's listening to this video or the sound, whatever it is, and is thinking, oh, how can I get to Faust to help me or assist, show me the way forward? How can people reach you?
The best way to get me is through my website. It's my name, FaustRuggiero.com.
Okay.
Uh, and that my website is dedicated to the book. So it has excerpts from the book. It has chapter outlines, and it has a contact page. If
Okay.
they want to get to me, go to the contact page, send me an email, and then we'll start communicating. And I have a lot of people that are doing that, you know, and I'm real good about answering the questions. If they have questions, some people have said, you know, can you just help me through this and counsel me online? I've done that. So, you know, if they need to get to me to ask some questions, by all means, just, you know, feel free to go to my website, again, FaustRuggiero.com, and I'll be glad to help out.
Wow, thank you. I'm going to attach that website to the video, and people are going to reach to you. And
Wonderful.
to you who is listening to this video, go get the book. Is it available online? I mean, can someone
Yes, you
just
can
read?
get you. Yeah,
Yeah.
Amazon has it. Barnes and Noble, all the usual retailers have it. It's out in paperback. It is out on Kindle, and by the end of July, it will also be an audiobook.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you very much, Faust. We appreciate you taking your time to share with us all the wisdom that you've gathered over the years. And I know that someone is going to get some real help from this book. So once again, we can't thank you enough for taking your time to come onto our show. And we wish you all success in everything. But before we go, tell us just a few words, a summary, something that you'd like us to remember you with.
Remember, as I said, everything you have, everything you need is already inside you.
Yeah,
Have the confidence to believe that if you work with it, you will get to where you need to go. Don't rush it. This
yeah.
is not a quick fix programs. Those never work. This is a program that covers a lot of ground and is meant to be there for life. So
Mm-hmm.
it's always going to be a reference tool for you to go back to. Never quit. Have faith in yourself. Know that you have the power inside you to do this. And a parting thought is, if you know, think about the last day of your life and you say, how do I want to be remembered? Live your life that way.
Whoa,
That's what I tell people.
whoa,
If you,
whoa, whoa.
you know, and I do that in everything. When I was raising kids, we had 4 children. I said, how do I want them to remember me as their dad? And
Yeah,
I went to be that dad in this part of my life. How do I want to be remembered as a counselor, as an author, and helping people, and live that way every day? And when you do that, what you're really doing is you're aspiring to be the person you want to be, and you put yourself in a position to be accountable and say, good, I want to get there. I want to be that person. Live the way you want to be remembered.
whoa, whoa. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me go back a bit, even before we sum it up. You told us that you were four in the family, born four in the family, yeah?
Yes.
And now you have 4 children.
Yes.
So it's the past, the present, and the future.
Correct.
And you bring them all together and you have a wonderful life.
That's the way it works.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you very, very, very much. We are really honored to have you. And until next time, thank you. And to the viewers, thank you. And bye.
Bye, everyone. God bless.
Yeah.